So let's talk about Vermelho, which I think it's probably the official marriage of Christian with Malige and Alentejo. It's a known love affair that you got for more than a decade, I assume. And I wanted to go back and ask you, when did your love affair with Portugal began? And when did Malige came into your life?
My love affair with Portugal began a long, long time ago. It actually started with Lisbon, and I had a friend who was shooting a movie in Lisbon, so I visited them. So there was a shooting. I visited them. This is probably now 30 years ago. So that was my first time in Lisbon. And then, but prior to that, or at kind of around the same moment, I actually visited Comporta, which used to be different.
Yeah.
And because I had a friend called Luis who was living in New York, he's Portuguese, but his family was having a place in Comporta. So he took us to Comporta with American friend. So we visited during the summer Comporta 30 years ago. That was the first time I came to spend some holidays on the beautiful beach of Alentejo. Also, the reason is it kind of reminded me of my childhood because I'm from Brittany and we have the same coast, meaning the waves. I'm someone from the ocean. So I feel very much at ease in here because this is the ocean.
When did Melides stole your heart?
So Melides came in my story. I had a house. I've been having a house in Carvalhal, Comporta, Carvalhal. This is more than 20 years ago now. And then things started to change, I would say. I could feel the change there. So I was kind of happy to move, but I didn't know where really to go. And in my head, I could easily move, but I didn't know. But then I cut my finger. As I was drawing, I cut this finger. So I had to go to the hospital. The hospital is on Santiago de Sacem. So on my way back, I was with Hugo, who I'm working with, and he was driving on my way back. It looked very nice, this area. And I said to Hugo, look, like there is a lagoon, we should go. With the car, we made a left side in direction of the sea, and then boom, the car went into the sand, so we were stopped. And I looked at it and started walking as we were waiting to be helped, the car to be helped, to be removed from the sun. So it took, this is Portugal, it took some hours. And which was a very nice thing because I ended up visiting the lagoon and thinking, okay, this is where I should move. And 2 days after, I called the father of the person, Madalena Callado, who is the architect for Vermelho. I called her father, who was my lawyer, and I said, Don José, hello, Don José, n'est-ce pas? He was speaking in French. I said, Don José, I am in a place called Cimiterio da Melides. It looks like a city. I would like to have something there. He says, this is not Cimiterio de Melides, it's called Melides, and it's a tiny, very nice village. I say, whatever, if it's not a cemetery, it's even better. I don't need to die there. I just need to have something there. And so 2 days after, he called me, and he found me a house.
When did you think, okay, I'm here, I love this, I'm going to build a hotel, which is something you've never done? How did Vermelho just appeared?
You
cut yourself and then you went to a hospital? No, I'm kidding.
I cut myself. I went to the hospital. I came back. Then eventually I got a house and I moved. Then during the restoration of the house, I was back and forth, still in Carvalhal. So I was missing one thing. So when I moved here, there was one thing which I was missing, was the fact that every night I would go to have dinner at the same restaurant called Dinish. And I love Dinish, the man. And so I was missing that point. Having one place where you go every day or every night, you don't even think about it, you don't have to, to book a table or whatever. Then you go there and you're happy. So I thought, it would be nice to have a restaurant where I would put my feet and then end of the story. So where we are was a little house. And then before, there was nothing. But just where there is a restaurant was a little house. And so I bought that house in order to do a restaurant. But there was this land, so the mayor of the town told me, why don't you build a hotel? You have land instead of doing a restaurant. So I said, okay. And so it started that way. But the interesting part, I would say, is when I say okay without thinking. and that's not a business move. That was not a business move. But immediately by instinct, I say yes to have a hotel. So I actually question myself why, because I realized doing that a lot of people have the same fantasy having a hotel. So I was wondering why so many people have the same fantasy. You have your job, you like your job, you love your job, you still would like to have a hotel in your mind. And so I think it comes from the fact that having your hotel it's almost going back to childhood. If it's your hotel, people take care of you, but you're not really responsible at the same time. You don't arrive in a hotel. If you have a house, you're going to see, oh my God, there is a problem, the bulb doesn't work, all this it's on your responsibility. When you have a hotel, it's no longer your responsibility. So in a way, you're pampered. People take care of you, but you don't really have to take care of people. So that's a very nice thing. And I think this is actually the fantasy that why so many people want a hotel. In the idea is because you're not in charge, in fact, and so you are not responsible. So you're almost like a child. The childish thing is that you're not responsible.
It's like your vacations home and you go with your family and everyone is there.
Exactly. Everyone is taking care of you. You don't have to take care of people. So that's a different feeling.
And it's funny that you mentioned that as well for two things. One of them is because I've been following your career for many years, and I've gotten to know you a little bit, and I also know that you have a lot of friends that you invite to come to Portugal and meet you, like Tita Von Teese, for example. I know that you love her a lot, and I feel like you've built sort of like a home for you to be pampered, but also to bring your friends. And I wanted to ask you, what's the inspiration behind the whole hotel and the decor? Because you've built it as if people were feeling like they were at home. Can you tell us a bit about the decor and the inspiration behind it?
The easiest thing to speak of the hotel is that I built it thinking it could eventually be a home. And let's say it is a hotel, but it could actually easily be a home because it's not such a big hotel. It's 13 rooms and 2 salons and then a garden. So it's a big house. And so if you build a hotel, the standard is like you're going to have the same robinet, you're going to have the same bathroom, what is the difference between a hotel and a house? A house is, even if it's a big house, you don't have one bathroom, which is the same. Why? Because your daughter likes it that way, your son likes it that way, your brother likes it that way. So everyone from the members of the family or people living in a place are going to have their own standards, and no one has the same. The difference with the hotel is that you are standardizing things. So I've really been thinking of that, it should be, that room should be Eloïse's room, that room should be Simon's room, that should be Vera's room, thinking of different characters who could have their places. So that's basically a very simple concept, but you're thinking one room is attached to a kind of character. I did that with my shoes, for instance. When I did the trash shoes, I was thinking of different characters and I was encapsulating those characters. It's a different story. But let's put it that way. So every room is different because every character is different. Often people are asking me that question, do you have a muse or the kind of woman who are Louboutin? And it's too many different women. So it's the same thing, too many different characters that cannot be encapsulated in one place or in one kind of decor. That's why it's been divided in different possible decor.
But you also have a lot of Portugal in it. I mean, in the way you've framed the doors and in the azulejos. Where can we find Portugal in the details at the hotel?
So really the idea behind Vermelho was to have a place. First of all, a place, you open the door, you see a patio and you're like, I'm here. I'm not even moving. Of course, in general, you move, but I love the feeling. I travel a lot. I love the feeling when I arrive in a hotel that I see that I'm going to like or love. I don't want to move. Okay, maybe I have to move at one point, but the idea of that it's a nest, it's your new nest, and you don't want to move for a certain time. It's your time to relax. So that's really the idea behind here. Then also the idea is that we are in a small town. So the idea was that you arrive and you're not thinking that at hotel, you're thinking that place has always been there. And one of the nicest compliments is people saying, or you did a great restoration of this convent. I say, okay, thank you very much. There's never been, there was nothing, here, there was nothing. But it's a very nice compliment. It means that it has been very well incorporated into the landscape. So first of all, it was done by a Portuguese architect, Madalena Caiado, and it was very important to have a feeling, from the beginning, to have a Portuguese feeling. Then after loving Portuguese architecture, I've been thinking, not necessarily only working with Portuguese people, but really that there is a feeling of Portugal in every aspect. So, a lot of things are coming from Portugal. First thing, ceramic. Ceramic is so, azulejos, tiles, etc. It's such an important part of the Portuguese culture. So a lot of things were done in Setúbal. So some of the tiles were made in Setúbal. And then the facade is really inspired by the Manuelian architecture. And it's by seeing the studio of this artist called Giuseppe Ducro, who is living in Rome. I thought, funny enough, my scope was such Portuguese. I thought, okay, he's Roman, but there is some Manuelian feeling in his work. So I commissioned him to do actually all of the framing of the restaurant, of the door, of the entry, etc., of the reception. So you have a strong feeling of a Manuelian type of architecture. And so really, it's a Baroque, there is a Baroque feeling of a Portuguese architecture. But it's a take on someone who is actually me, which is, I'm French. But I always like the vision of, that's why I don't understand cultural appropriation issues. I like the idea that you are looking at different cultures and then you're embracing it and you actually digesting it and doing something out of it.
It's not appropriation, it's homage, it's a tribute.
Exactly. I call it cultural fascination, not cultural appropriation. First of all, it is in Portugal and the tribute is to Portugal. So yes, a lot of elements are coming from Portugal. The weaving has been done in France, but it's really definitely a woven fabrics or woven intricate that I saw in Portugal through the baskets, etc. Then after the Manuelian architecture, as I was telling you, so a part has been done in Portugal and a part has been done here. The terracotta, everything is coming from Algarve also. So there's been a lot of interpretation, or there's been a lot of elements which are coming from Portugal. And also another thing, because it's, when you live in a place or in a country, you take for granted a lot of things. You almost don't even see it because it's so natural to you. So there are some things that when you are not from the place, you're still astonished. And when you are from the place, oh, really? You are into that? Oh, okay, whatever. Because it's so natural to you that you kind of forget that it's pretty specific and it's not necessarily something you see everywhere. An example, chimneys. Fireplaces and then the chimneys. It's really an incredible thing. I've seen that in two countries, Iran, very, very high chimney, and they use it for ventilation, so it's kind of natural air condition in Yaz, etc., but also here in the south of Portugal. So I've been adding chimneys, and then I was driving Madalena crazy. I said, oh, we should have more chimneys. She said, but there is no reason. I said, no, it's purely aesthetic. But you have no idea how chimneys is a thing that when you first go to the south of Portugal in Algarve, etc., you're kind of fascinated because they're all different height, different shapes, etc. It's really a thing that you don't see. You barely see. You don't see that in France, maybe in Chambord, but it's very specific, but it's very, very rare. Here, it's kind of traditional. So, yes, I don't remember why I'm speaking of the chimney, but the chimney was a big thing.
The Portugal part and the tribute to Portugal and how you can find Portugal here and how you're, as an outsider, you see things that we've grown to be accustomed to see and don't see it, and chimneys are one of them. I'm not sure if I'm correct in this exception, but I think there's also some kind of like Northern African, Moorish, Moroccan details, which is actually kind of Portuguese because you have so many influences like that. And I also see that here, which I think that it's not from here, but it's from here because Alentejo and Algarve have been...
It marries well, I would say.
Well, yeah.
So, for instance, there is this salon, which is on the top above the restaurant, which is a mix of Filipino fine arts and also really Islamic Andalus with the tiles. So the tiles are coming from Spain, from Triana, and then a part was, and the second part with the console, which are mother of pearls, are coming from Philippines. And so I had one which was, I went to Philippines, and this friend of mine, Filipino, gave me that thing, and it looked so beautiful that I wanted to actually use them for the hotel. So a part has been done in Philippines. It was, again, it has something kind of Manuelian because it looks like a roca, some rocks made out of those thick mother of pearls concave things. So it's also an homage, a tribute, I would say, to the sea of Melides, because it looks that
Like
it's
a
been
wave.
extracted from the sea. Exactly. Ondas.
Yeah,
Ondas.
I love when you speak Portuguese. It's amazing because it's so good. It's so good. I love when you speak Portuguese because it's so correct and it's so Portuguese. It's really really good.
Good. Obrigado
and-
para le complimento.
I love that.
It's a little bit more
Brazilian. There was a bit of Brazilian in the end, but it's okay. I'll take it. And congrats to you and Madalena, because everything you said, it really marries. Everything marries well, and it really feels like a home. And I think Vermelho is really like, even if it's a place to stay and a place to visit, and everything is beautiful here, and you really feel like you're part of the city, but you're outside of the city at the same time when you get in. It's beautifully done. And Vermelho is, of course, a rather aptly named. It's self-explanatory. Vermelho is perfect. But was it the first name that you thought of when you thought about the name of the hotel?
No, of course, if you have a child, if you want to name something that you like very much, you go back and forth, etc. So Vermelho arrived as an evidence, but it did not arrive as an evidence at first. So there was, again, in the middle of the construction, there were kind of few names coming, and then there was, for a moment, there's been this name which was the moment. The idea of the moment is that it's a moment where you rest, it's a moment where you look, it's a moment for yourself, etc. But then for some reason, a moment looked, first of all, too international, which is probably good for making it understanding to everyone, but not enough Portuguese. So I thought moment, yes, I kind of see it, but I'm not that happy of the moment. Momento was not even better, but momento was better than moment, but at the same time it looked too generic. And then suddenly when it was about the floor, I thought the floor should actually be red, and I thought between blue at one point and red, so there was azul or vermelho. And I thought vermelho is a correct name. First of all, it means red, so there is a little bit about me. I mean, it's a little bit of clin d'œil, I don't know how you say in English. But then also, vermelho is a play on words if you're French, because it's close to vermeil. And vermeil, it's a mix of gold and silver, which is in fine art, and it's very, very beautiful. So it has to see with, les couverts, etc., argenterie, silvery, etc., vermeil. But also, it's close to merveille, which is marvelous in French. So it's either marvelous,
like an
it's either
anagram of
vermeil.
merveille.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it's very close to things which all make nice sense. So I thought, okay, vermelho is really red, and it's also a very nice word in Portuguese. So suddenly it made sense, and I didn't think anymore. I could sleep again.
I love that explanation, because there's so many layers to the name that I didn't even think about. I just thought, okay, red means Louboutin in some way. I mean, in some sense, it's like closely connected to Louboutin, so it's very, very obvious. But it's in Portuguese, so it has the Portuguese connection. And I thought that was it. But there's so many layers about the name, which is, I think it's amazing. And I love that there's vermelho all over the hotel, but it's very subtle. So it's not obvious, like the name.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you, what's the first Portuguese thing you do once you arrive to Melides? Like something you can only do here?
The first thing that I do when I arrive, you know what? It's a very simple thing. I have a café con leche. Why? It's because for some reason, or I don't want to go there because it's too long and very boring.
No,
but
do.
coffee is very good in Portugal. Compared to France, it's way better. So that's the first thing that I do, and I enjoy it.
And coffee with milk in Portugal is different from a latte in Paris.
Yes.
It's I don't know, I think it's simpler probably.
But the coffee is better.
The coffee is amazing here.
The coffee is very good.
I totally agree. What's your favorite place around Melides? Like when you come, where do you usually go to?
Two places. One is the beach. I have to go to say hi to the ondas, to the beach, and then after, when I leave, I'm going to do the same ritual. I say goodbye to the beach. And the other thing that I'm always doing is to go to Vidadura, which is my favorite, expression. And it became a store which is just behind it. So Vidadura, which is a great store where a lot of things actually from the hotel are coming. All the ceramic have been done by Rui Freitas, who has Vidadura. So a lot of things which have been involved in here have been done thanks to that store.
What's your favorite restaurant around? And when you go there, what do you usually order to eat?
My favorite restaurant is two restaurants. One, which I don't even know the name, it's on that main road. Mm-hmm. And I go for the dessert, which is called... Comment ça s'appelle là? No, not alfaroba. Le gâteau là. When we go there, we even pick it up, Saf.
Is this alfaroba that we pick?
No, not from there. From comment ça s'appelle là?
Molotov?
Molotov. And it's Molotov. It's from. How do you say aunt?
Tia.
Tia Rosa. Voilà.
Tia Rosa.
Okay.
Yeah, Molotov. And farofias from Tia Rosa is amazing as well.
Voilà. So my favorite restaurant is Tia Rosa on the road here, where I love the Molotov. And I'm not a big dessert person. The other one is for the plumas is chez Daniel, which is in Saint-André.
And you order plumage?
Plumage de porco.
Yeah, that's nice, that's nice. A dish combination in Alentejo, that's a winner for you.
A dish, porco Alentejo. Porco Alentejo. Ouais. Because I can eat clams.
Okay.
Because I'm allergic to fish, which makes my life kind of complicated in Portugal.
Yes.
But clam is as far as I can go without being sick.
Well, I'm glad you chose Alentejo because clams
Yes.
are very nice here and easy to find. And yeah, you can eat ameijoas.
Yes, I
Ameijoas
love
are
ameijoas
too.
too.
With a little bit of like Alentejo bread.
With a lot of Alentejo bread.
Yeah, exactly. An unknown treasure of Melides Portuguese people take for granted.
The chimneys.
I'll take it.
But also, you know what? The beauty of the landscape, I have to say. For instance, all those pineros are so beautiful. Mm-hmm. But the way it's pruned, and also the way the pineros here, because of the wind, I think, bends, is really making a very, very, very beautiful landscape that you can only see here and sometimes to Japan. Yeah, how do you say the tiles on the floor? But calçada, voilà.
Together, yeah.
Oui, something that, again, I guess Portuguese can take for granted. They don't see the beauty of it necessarily. Is the calçadas. Calçadas are beautiful. Inside Alentejo, you have so many beautiful roads with calçada. I'm thinking of Araiolos, I'm thinking of Elvas, etc. You have really beautiful Villa Viçosa. They have those beautiful calçadas. So sometimes people take it for granted that it's a normal thing, till the moment that they want to replace it because they're so, which is crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
Criminal.
Criminal, I like that word, especially because I don't think that people realize that sometimes a lot of foreigners talk about the light of Portugal, and the light of Portugal is also a consequence of the reflection of the white tiles in the floor.
True.
I'm glad you spoke about the calçada Portuguese because I wanted to ask you, what's the best pair of Louboutin shoes to walk in the calçada portuguesa?
In a calçada, it's quite easy. You can wear anything. I wouldn't go too high. Mm-hmm. Talking about shoes, I would not go too high because too high there are a few places where very high heels are not that great. One is definitely
the calçada.
Calçada. Let's say worst cities, for instance, for my shoes, really the high heels, I would say Venice and Lisbon. Venice because you have to walk up and down the bridges, etc. So it makes a lot of sport. So for the calf, it's a bit challenging. Second one is definitely Lisbon.
Yeah.
Because of the height.
That's
But
fine.
in order to wear Louboutin, I would definitely favor platforms, wedges.
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 Yeah.
You know, I always, sometimes I have to do weddings, and so the bride comes and she wants a high heel. I always say, okay, is that on a lawn, is that a home, or it's outside? Immediately, if I hear outside, I say, forget about high heel, spiky. You have to go for either thick heel or either a wedge. That's
Yeah.
really important.
Because there's a Louboutin shoe for any type of pavement, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You also have a home in Lisbon, so which is very smart of you because you can have city and countryside less than 2 hours away. What do you love to do or eat or see in Melide that you can't in Lisbon, and the other way around? So what do you do here that you don't do in Lisbon, and what do you do there that you don't do here?
So what I do in Lisbon that I don't do here is I go to this restaurant called Aqui El Peixe. It used to be a place actually on the sea there, and then life changed and it no longer exists. So I love to go there and again to pay the tribute because it's a fantastic restaurant. The food is delicious, and they used to be my neighbors when I was living up north, meaning Carvalhal. And the second thing that I do here that I don't do in Lisbon, I don't go to the beach in Lisbon. I don't cross a bridge to go to the beach in Lisbon because here I walk to the beach. So here I'm really dedicated. I feel Parisian in Lisbon, and I feel Breton from Brittany when I'm in Melide. And my heart is, I was born and raised in Paris, but from Breton parents. So I feel my family when I'm in Melide, and I feel my Parisian blood when I'm in Lisbon.
Let me just ask you one thing about that answer. The restaurant in Lisbon, Aqui há Peixe, it's a fish restaurant. What do you eat there?
Lobster,
Okay.
crab, everything which is
Seafood,
seafood,
okay.
but not fish.
When you get to Lisbon, do you prefer the bica mais pastel de nata combo or the meia de leite, the latte, plus the mixed toast one?
Neither one, neither the other.
No.
No, I'm not an eggy person.
Okay. So what do you usually eat for breakfast? It's just like your meia de leite? It's just your coffee?
I don't
with
do
milk?
breakfast. I do come si chiama? Una carioca
Carioca
di limão.
Ah, that's perfect. That's
È
very Portuguese as well.
solamente uma carioca di limão.
That's perfect. That's very Portuguese as well. And it's underrated because most people don't say that, but it's actually something that we ask a lot in coffee shops. You've been coming to Portugal for decades and enjoying it as an honorary citizen for a big part of it. I know that you already know how to speak Portuguese because you've showed it throughout the interview. And I wanted to ask you 5 words you use a lot in Portuguese or that you go to more often.
Alors, il y a sardinhas,
Which you don't ask because you're allergic.
because I'm allergic, so I have to check any sardinhas per ali, altrimenti non fa. Sardinhas, vida dura, because it's an expression which I love, and in general it means exactly the opposite. What are the words that I overuse? Vida dura, sardinhas, divinidades, et qu'est-ce qu'il y a d'autre que j'utilise? Let me think. Obrigado.
Obrigado, yeah. Bom dia,
Obrigado.
boa noite. Café com leite.
Café con net.
Café com leite.
Sim. Um bom viagem.
Boa viagem. That's
Tudo
perfect.
bem.
Next time I interview you, we have to do the interview in Portuguese.
Eu tenho a falar um melhor português que agora, porque agora eu sou enchemado. Je sais pas si ça se dit ça. Je pense pas du tout.
We will put subtitles now, but next time we don't. What's the best thing about Portugal, considering you know it most of it quite well?
What I would say one of the best things of Portugal is the pace of Portugal, the difference of pace when you arrive from very agitated places such as Paris.
What's the worst thing about Portugal, considering you know it quite well?
The worst thing about Portugal is the pace again.
I knew you were going to say that.
The administrative pace. Everything which has to see with administration, the pace of it, could drive anyone crazy. I am a saint, I can tell you.
You've learned a
to
lot.
keep a smile sometimes.
You,
But it's fine.
you've learned a lot while building the hotel about the Portuguese space, I can imagine.
The pace has its downside, let's put it that way. But it has also its very good side.
When you go back to Paris or to any of your travels, what's a Portuguese habit you've picked up that you take with you?
I keep, there is this expression which says what happens in somewhere stays somewhere. So what happens in Portugal stays in Portugal at the same time. So I keep my Portuguese habits in Portugal. The one habit that I'm keeping, extracting from Portugal and bringing is actually listening to fado. So one of the things that I keep on listening is, for instance, Marisa. I listen en boucle Marisa. And now there is a kind of French fan club, Parisian fan club of Marisa, because every time you would go at my apartment in Paris, that would probably be fado or minimum Marisa.
You know, I interviewed Marisa a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and she talked about you because she says one of her favorite shoes is ones you did for her to wear in the summer stage of New York. Yeah.
Yes.
She loves you as well. Everyone loves you.
Thank you. Obrigado.
You've had a bag, Portugaba, inspired by
ouais.
Portugal artisanal heritage. And I wanted to ask you, when can we have a follow-up, be it as a part 2 of the bag or a pair of shoes, and what would inspire you this time?
There is a part 2 of, let's say, a straightforward Portuguese inspiration. It's actually in the process now. But it has nothing to see with textile. It's actually looking at and actually buying some of the North jewelry, the jewelry made in the North with the filigrane.
Yeah, okay.
The heart with the filigrane.
Perfect.
So that's really, again, that's one thing which is really beautiful. You see sometimes in Turkey, they have also beautiful jewelry made out of filigrane. But in Portugal, it's very different. It's actually even thinner. And the shapes are always kind of very round, the heart being one of the most important. So I'm actually working on hardware, I would say, made out of Portuguese filigrane.
To include in the pair of shoes or to?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. That's beautiful. I can't wait to see it. Would that
a little bit of Portuguese jewelry around your ankles.
Okay. Would we be able to see it within 2024, or is it are you saving it for
No,
in 2024?
not in 2024. Because again, the pace of Portugal being sometimes going all the way on influencing me, I think it's going to take more than a year to finish. But also, I like to do. I have a big attention to details. So it's better to wait and to do it properly than doing just to do it. Perfect. So it will take the time it will have to take. So it's probably over the next year.
Okay, perfect. Can't wait to see it. This is a tricky one. French cheese or Portuguese cheese?
You can't ask this to a French person. Or say, ask this to a Spanish person, ask this to an Italian person, ask this to an English person. But you cannot speak to a French person talking about cheese. It has to be French. Even though cheese is very good in Portugal.
Okay, I'll take that as
well. But it's the same thing for wine. Don't even ask.
That's my next question. French wine or French?
Of course, French wine. Of course, but again, I think that Portuguese wine and cheese are way better than people are imagining when they don't know Portugal. Yeah. That's definitely big hidden gems from Portugal is wine and cheese.
Yeah. I would say
food in general.
Yeah, I would say do a dinner party and put French and Portuguese cheese, just mix them all together and make a party out of it.
But you see, for instance, when I travel, I was in California, and I don't like to take French wine in California, and so sometimes I take Californian wine, but I always ask, do you have Portuguese wine? So I go either
French or Portuguese?
No. Either Californian wine or Portuguese wine.
That's a good thing for us. Vermelho has opened for a bit over a year now, officially, and it's your first hotel. What have you learned from it in this first year, besides the pace things take in Portugal?
I have learned something which I knew, but I had not experienced it directly, frontally, let's say, is the velocity, talking of pace, the velocity of nature. So it's something which is very famous outside Portugal is the beauty of Portuguese gardens. You know, the mix, again, with the tiles and the nature, but the fact there is a lot of humidity, so it grows very well, etc. You know, compared to Spain or the south of France, you know, where it's drier in a way. So the garden here was done. There was nothing. In 3 months, there was a garden. So the velocity, the different pace of the garden versus the rest. But how beautiful from nothing can a garden become very quickly.
That's gorgeous.
So the strength of nature.
Do you have any special story about this first year of the hotel that you can share? Like an episode with customers or like a feedback that you've heard that you loved?
You know, it's nice to see that I, without having put my name, Louboutin, people who first came are quite attached to me in a way, in different ways, but also to the fact that they see that there has been a lot of attention to detail. So sometimes I'm walking around and I see people taking pictures, the selfies, the thing, etc., in front of a lot of detail. So it's nice when you are actually detail-oriented to see that people look at it. And so that makes me always very, very happy. So otherwise, I have to say, someone who also participated a lot to the construction of the hotel, a friend of mine called Carolina Irving, she got married there. So the first wedding was of a very, very good friend, of a very good friend of mine, Carolina, and her husband, Bertrand. So I was very happy that the first celebration was actually a wedding of a very dear friend of mine.
That's beautiful. Last questions. I read that there were plans for a second Vermelho. I know that it's already in construction, called Vermelho Lagoa. And I wanted to ask you if you could share anything in advance about that project. It's a quite close hotel.
Yes.
So what's the similarities and difference that it will have from this one? And when will it
So
open?
I realized doing things kind of by instinct and not thinking. Just when I do things after I try to understand what I did. But I do first, and then I take the consequences of what I... So I've been actually realizing that here I kind of gave a white card, carte blanche, to one person who was an artist, who was a great artist, which is Giuseppe Ducro. So all the ceramics, so really a kind of signature has been done by one person. Then there was a lot of people involved, but it's really a carte blanche to one artist. So the second hotel has the same thing. It's a carte blanche to one artist. And I think that if I keep on doing hotels, doing Vermelhos, it will always be one carte blanche to one specific artist. So the second, so Vermelho Praia, or Vermelho Lagoa, it has a carte blanche to a different artist. But his take on is going to be very much around tiles, but in an interpretation of tiles and interpretation of painted tiles. Okay. Really detailedly painted tiles.
Okay. Can you already share the artist who's doing it? Not yet. You don't want to disclose yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. But it's definitely, we started already. I just saw 2 days ago the first not draft, but the first details, how the colors are coming. So it's going to be really beautiful.
I wouldn't think of any other way coming from you.
And again, it's very, but there is a theme which is the sea. This one is still, it's by the sea, but it's not the sea. It's in the town. This one is really the sea. So the theme is going to be the sea. So it will play as the younger brother for many reasons of that one.
More relaxed?
More music.
More music.
More music.
Perfect. Can't wait to see it. Thank you so much, Christian. This was gorgeous.
De nada.
Beautiful interview. Thank you.